Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel, where I'm always breaking down the hot sports topics of the day. My name is Mike. Thought I'd take some time now to give you who I think are the top 10 best free agents left on the open market here in the NFL. We're a week into free agency. We've had a flurry of signings, which you can catch up on most of them by checking out my other videos here on my channel. But just want to sort of reset and tell you who I think are the top 10 players, as I said, still available here. At number 10, I have Dwight Freeney. Dwight Freeney, of course, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts. Freeney has experience in the 3-4 from last year, and of course a 4-3 as well in his, all of his other years in Indianapolis. He's an edge pass rusher. I think a lot of these guys, whether it's Freeney, Abraham, Umenyiora, I think what they're getting from a lot of teams, that is, a lot of teams want them to be situational pass rushers, and I think they're holding out as long as they can before agreeing to a role like that. I think all these guys think they're every down players. I think Freeney's included in that. Some teams I think that you'll see in the mix for Freeney and where I think he ultimately ends up, I think you have teams like the Ravens are interested in him from what you're hearing. The Patriots, of course, in their 3-4 scheme to use him as an edge pass rusher, and also Denver. If Dumervil doesn't work out, if he doesn't end up coming back to Denver, maybe they're a team that gets in the mix here for Freeney. I think when all is said and done, he ends up close to home, close to where he grew up in Bloomfield, Connecticut, and he ends up going to the Patriots as a situational, outside linebacker, pass rusher type in that 3-4. Number 9 here on my best free agents available list is James Harrison. James Harrison, obviously sort of in the same situation as Freeney, but even more so. A 3-4 team looking for a pass rusher will probably be very interested in him. He's broken down a little bit, but he can still get after the passer. Make no mistake about that. It's strictly a salary cap issue why the Steelers let him go. There's been some rumors about the Ravens interested in him. I just think there's general hatred between any Steeler and Raven that's played here for the last 7, 8, 10 years, and I don't see him going to the Ravens. I think a fit for Harrison is the Eagles. I've been saying this for weeks now, since Harrison got released. I like that fit there in Philadelphia with a young defense, switching to a 3-4. I think you bring Harrison in there, he brings attitude, and he brings a guy who can still rush the passer, and he can show these younger linebackers that the Eagles now have how to rush the passer, how to be very effective in that 3-4 defense, which he's done for years as a member of the Steelers. In at number 8 here, I have Ed Reed. Ed Reed, obviously a longtime safety of the Ravens. The Ravens, I think, are still in the mix for him. Obviously, the Texans, he went as a well-publicized visit with the Texans as well. It's coming out today. They offered him a 3-year contract in the $12 million range. And I don't think you guys should count out the 49ers. I know they signed Craig Dahl late last week, but I don't count out the 49ers. They still have needs at the safety position, and whether they look at Dahl as the long-term solution, who knows? But I think ultimately Ed Reed ends up back in Baltimore. I think they'll offer him a little bit more money just to keep him around because they've lost so many veteran leaders and leaders in general off that defense and all that off that team. Whether it's Bolden, who went to San Francisco, Ray Lewis retiring, Donnell Ellerbe leaving, which I think caught them by surprise, and of course Paul Kruger leaving to go to the Browns. So I think Ed Reed ends up back with the Ravens. In at number 7, I have John Abraham. John Abraham, again, one of these pass rushing specialists. I think he has to find a 4-3 team that fits what he can do. I thought the Seahawks might be interested in him, but to be honest, I think the Seahawks surprised everyone by going big time with the pass rushers and getting Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill. But as far as fits for him, the 49ers and the Patriots, I think, are the only teams that are going to come calling for him. And again, it's not his conventional 4-3 that he's used to playing in, and I think that'll hurt his value, where teams will strictly look at him as an edge pass rusher from the outside, and I don't think he links up with a team that runs a 4-3, and I don't see him being any more than a situational guy at this point. But I still think Abraham, out of certainly more so than Freeney and Harrison, has a little bit more left in the tank from a production standpoint. So I have Abraham coming in at number 7. Number 6, I have Osi Umenyiora. Umenyiora is a guy who's been angry about his contract with the Giants, seems like for years now. And I think the Giants are still in the mix for him because I don't think this market is what OC thought it was going to be. I also think the Dolphins all right, should have natural interest in a guy like Umenyiora, that, to pair him with Cameron Wake, unless the Dolphins have visions of going in the draft and getting a pass rusher. The Lions came out. They were thought to be interested in Umenyiora. Their general manager came out and pretty much rebuffed any interest that was perceived that they had in Osi. And, another team that could potentially be interested in him is the Falcons. And the Falcons let go of John Abraham. They had no one to replace him. I think when it comes down to it, the market is not going to bear what Osi thinks he's worth. And I think he ends up going back to the Giants. I think he wants to be a Giant deep down. I think him and Ed Reed are sort of in the same boat with this. And I think Osi ends up back with the Giants and basically plays his whole career with one team, the New York Giants. Okay. Number 5, I have Brent Grimes, the cornerback, formerly of the Atlanta Falcons. I think Grimes goes to the highest bidder. I still obviously think Atlanta's in the mix. I think the Dolphins, again, you hear the Dolphins a lot this offseason, but they have a lot of cap space. I think the Dolphins will also be in the mix, and I also think the Buccaneers. I think Grimes would be their third option. I think they obviously want to trade for Revis. There's another guy who I think they should go after, who I'm going to mention next, who's actually number 4 on my list, and then I think Grimes. I think Grimes is the second best cornerback available here in free agency. I think he ends up being a starter. He ends up being a pretty good starter. I think he's a guy you can get at a serious reduction based on the contracts that a guy like, let's say, Sean Smith had. I think Grimes will even get less money than that and will be a very valuable veteran commodity for some team because Grimes is only 30 years old. So I think he latches on with one of those teams and does a very good job. In at number 4, the cornerback I have rated a little bit ahead of Grimes is Antoine Winfield. Winfield, I was surprised he got released from Minnesota because he had such a good season last year. He's been there for 9 years. He's been a Pro Bowler at times. He's just been a very solid player. If you follow Pro Football Focus, which I do, he was their number 1 rated cornerback. And I find it. I know he do a lot of money. I think Minnesota definitely wants him back. I think he should be the Buccaneers' plan 1A if they can't trade for Darrelle Revis. And again, you're going to hear the Dolphins name mentioned with Winfield as well. That's how big of a need they have at the cornerback position. So I have Antoine Winfield in at number 4. In number 3, I have Sebastian Vollmer, the tackle for the New England Patriots. Vollmer is a right tackle. You're looking at Jake Long, Sebastian Vollmer, and my number 2 rated free agent are all represented by the same agency. So that kind of held up the tackle market here. But now that you see Jake Long sign, I think Vollmer gets a deal done, okay, with the Patriots when all is said and done. I think the Patriots realize his value, especially with Brady getting up there in age, to protect him, to form a solid pocket for him week in and week out. Vollmer's a good guy, good player, more importantly. And I think the Patriots lock him up. I don't think it's even a question he ends up back in New England. Brady restructured his contract for something. And I'm thinking a lot of that money is going to go to Sebastian Vollmer. At number 2, I have Andre Smith, the tackle from the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, he's represented by the same agency as Vollmer and Jake Long. I look for him to get a deal done soon as well. Cincinnati has a boatload of cap space. There's no reason why they shouldn't keep Smith. If Cincinnati, for some reason, balks at bringing him back, which, they're signing a lot of their own guys. I think they've re-signed 6 of their own guys. It would only be natural to me that they re-sign the most valuable one that hit the free agent market in Andre Smith. But maybe he ends up in Miami on a long shot because they obviously need to replace Jake Long, who left for St. Louis. Number 1 on my list is Elvis Dumervil. Dumervil's a very productive pass rusher in the prime of his career. That's only a free agent because of a paperwork snafu. And the fact that he fired his agent makes me think that he didn't collude with his agent to get the contract back later, than the specified deadline, and that he wants to be in Denver. I expect if Denver makes a fair offer, which it's reported they made an offer already, if they make a fair offer, Dumervil will be back with the Broncos because I think a lot of the blame for this situation was placed on the agent, and I think they can move forward from this. But the Ravens are rumored to be very interested in Dumervil. I think that would be a scary fit. Suggs coming from one end, Dumervil from the other end, and as well as Pittsburgh. Maybe Pittsburgh in an outside shot if they could figure out a way to fit him under the cap. Maybe Pittsburgh becomes a player for him as well. But again, I see Dumervil ending up with Denver. Let me know what you guys think of this list. Those are the top 10 free agents I have left on the open market as of today. Today's Tuesday, March 19th. So let me know what you guys think of these free agents that are left, where you see them ending up. Those are obviously destinations I think they can go, and I gave you also where I think each one of them will end up. So hit me up in the YouTube comments, hit me up on Twitter at SNewsAnalysis, and guys, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I upload between 5 and 10 sports videos a day here, sports talk videos, I should say, videos a day, and always talking sports, guys. Thanks as always for listening. Be sure to subscribe, and have a great night.